right. How's everyone doing?
Good, man. Good. How you guys doing?
Good.
Solid.
My name is Greg Sopa. I'm with the marketing team here with Losi. And with me, we've also got Brian, who's also with the marketing team out in the California office. And then Josh Martelli, who's with us from Mad Media. So, Josh, you want to give us a quick intro on yourself?
Yeah, first off, it's great to be here with you guys. I've been a big fan of Losi and the entire Horizon family for many, many years now. But yeah, Mad Media, the company my brother and I run, we've been around since about 1995, based here in San Diego. And we started out as kind of an action sports design group. We went to a local junior college here and learned graphic design way back in the early days of Photoshop version 1, and learned how to run a screen press, learned how to make t-shirts and stickers, all that kind of fun stuff at a time when the action sports industry was really experiencing rapid growth, right? So this is right before DC shoes started, right before some of those big brands like Quicksilver blew up in the late 90s. And, since we had a lot of friends that were pro surfers, skaters, and snowboarders, we just created this company literally out of my brother's garage and started designing print ads and doing, catalog work and whatever we could do in that action sports world. We did that for, a good 5 years. And then this thing called X Games came along and it just ramped that whole thing up. I mean, it just exploded. All of a sudden, everybody from Gatorade to Honda wanted something to do with action sports. And we were just kind of sitting in the right place at the right time here in San Diego to take advantage of that. And we became an intermediary agency between action sport brands and big brands like, Honda, Gatorade, Snickers, McDonald's, you name it. And so we kind of navigated both of those worlds. We understood the corporate advertising world, and we also understood what was authentic to action sports culture. So we worked on all kinds of cool stuff. We helped organize and market the biggest skateboard tour in history, the Osiris Aftermath Tour. We did like 90 stops between the US and Europe. And that's really where we cut our teeth on doing a lot of video work. But, we also did a lot of work with Transworld Media. We were one of the first outside agencies to get the cover of Transworld Motocross with Caleb Wyatt's backflip that incidentally happened about a month before Mets did the double, and then everyone forgot about it, right? So we've kind of been operating in that action sport world for 25 years. And what happened with us, it's kind of interesting, is like, as we grew, we learned and picked up different skill sets, had different opportunities come up. One of them being, we were pretty close friends with Ken Block back when he was at DC, and he invited us out to film North American Rally when he joined the Subaru Rally team with Pastrana and Mira. Mm-hmm. And so, he knew we were doing video work, and we tagged along for that for a couple years, and that led to our first full-blown Subaru WRX STI commercial. And then that's how the conversation got started with Ken for Gymkhana. So the whole Gymkhana thing kind of started right around that time, and Matt and I produced and directed the first 3. And then we shifted our gaze a little bit away from viral video production to more of the event side, and ended up with an opportunity to buy the Mint 400. Now, for those of you at home that don't know, the Mint 400 is the oldest and biggest desert off-road race in America. Started in 1968 in Vegas, and it really became famous overnight as one of the pillars of racing here in America. You would race the Indy 500, and you would go compete in Le Mans. But the Mint was something that just sort of captured everybody's imagination because it was so difficult. It was so hard at that time in the 70s to finish 400 miles. So, we bought it back in 2012 because we were working on that project for a sponsor, and the opportunity came up to kind of stick our foot in the event game. So for about the last 10 years, we've been rebuilding that brand and rebuilding that event, restoring it to its former glory, we like to say. And it's interesting because, you know, all the cool things that we saw happen with action sports through things like X Games, now we're taking pages out of that playbook and applying them to what we're doing with the MIT 400. So that's the 6-minute or 5-minute overview. There's a million stories in between there, but you know, yeah, we're two kids from Michigan that moved to California in '84 and, you know, learned how to use Photoshop on Macintosh computers, and here we are 25 years later, you know.
So how did you evolve from, you know, doing more of the graphics related type of marketing and ads and things like that into film?
Yeah, you know, it's a great question. A lot of it was trial by fire, and what I mean by that is in 1994 and 1995, you know, you could enroll in film school, you know, and people did. They went to USC, UCLA, fantastic film schools. There were a few around the U.S., but that was really the early days of the internet, and you know, the action sports community has always been a bootstrap do-it-yourself community, very similar to the RC community, actually, you know, full of bright minds and young people who hustle. And, you know, we were so used to doing everything ourselves, learning how to screen print t-shirts, learning how to make our own stickers, you know, that when it came time to gravitate into video work, we just looked at what we could afford, you know, and we were very lucky around that 95 to 2000 era. That technology curve was moving so quickly. It just ramped up really quickly. And when the Panasonic HVX 200 camera came out and we could shoot slow motion video in HD, that was a game changer. I mean, that literally, it gave us the power in a $3,000 package that prior to that, you literally had to shoot film. You had to shoot Super 16 on a film camera, which is just prohibitively expensive for filming action sports, you know?
Yeah.
So we taught ourselves, you know, through trial and error. And this is way before, you know, you had social media platforms like YouTube. We're just in their early stages, but, you know, it was expensive to host video on a website and, you know, and let people watch it. So we just had to wait for the rest of the world to kind of catch up, you know?
Yeah. Well, and then so you get into kind of the viral video stage of your guys' history, and you know, when you set out for a project like that, were you setting out for, you know, wanting to just do this completely crazy, you know, did you intend for it to go viral, or did it just, you know, grow legs that you're like, wow, there's really something to this?
Yeah, that's a great question. The best way to describe it is we were comfortable with this idea of filming. In skateboarding, it was really common to go out and film with the pro skater over a period of time, let's say, you know, anywhere from a couple weeks to sometimes 6 months, and then editing their footage in a sequence so it had a flow and a rhythm and a cadence and would end on the most spectacular tricks at the end of the video. So that was pretty unique to action sports. There are no films that were doing that. Music videos really didn't do that. You know, that was pretty unique to what we were doing. So when the concept of putting together a video with Ken for that first Gymkhana video happened, it was pretty loose. You know, we didn't have a bunch of stuff fleshed out on paper. We just knew about this location, this, you know, sort of abandoned airfield in Irvine. And I think Ken had gone and done an autocross contest there. And I remember him saying to me, it was lame because all they did was set out like these little tiny cones, right? And, you know, in autocross, you get rewarded for how precise you drive the car, but there's no reward for being flashy like there is in drifting, right? But in Japan, Gymkhana was an evolution of autocross that involved a lot more flashier driving and using the environment in a way that was cool and creative. So, you know, I think what happened is we basically got out there and we looked at the location and then literally on paper just drew lines and we're like, hey, you know, if we set up these barriers, maybe you could go in here and do this and do that. And then, you know, I'll say this, when there's no pressure and there's no clients and there's nobody standing around and not a lot of expectations, sometimes that's when you get your best work, right?
Yeah.
So that first video was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was literally like 6 or 7 of us, screwing around for 3 or 4 days. And then we cut everything together, threw it up on his personal website, got 1 million views in like 2 days, crashed his personal server, or the server that was hosting his personal site, and then very quickly pivoted and threw it on YouTube. And we didn't have any sponsors really for it. I think if you play it today, it says 0 to 60 mag or something like that, which was some random car magazine that was sort of involved in helping promote it. But that was very just off the cuff, and it was all we did was use what we learned with skateboarding to just kind of put that together. Now, when we produced Gymkhana 2, whole different ball game. I mean, that was a full-blown Hollywood production. We had film permits, and we filmed that in the port of Los Angeles. That that's Homeland Security territory. There was, in the middle of that shoot, there was a boat that came in and did an emergency stop, which they have international laws about. They have the right to do this. So third day of shooting, we show up and there's this massive boat in the middle of our set that wasn't there for any of the other shots. You know what I mean? Like, so it was stuff like that. Involving Rob Dyrdek was great. Involving Jason Ellis was fun. But we blew up a semi trailer. Like, we hired pyrotechnics guys. We did super slow motion photography, which is a whole specialty unto itself. So we really went from like grassroots to like way over the top. And I'll share one thing that I think you guys will appreciate. At the end of Gymkhana 2, when we were wrapped and we were sitting around with the crew having a beer, stoked that we made all of the shots that we wanted to. There were about 10 guys there from Hollywood that had to be there to help us do certain things like the explosives and some of the high-speed photography. And they looked at us and they said, "You guys are nuts. You shot 6 to 7 major car stunts a day for 6 days in a row with cameos. Like, what you just did would have taken us 6 months in Hollywood." Like, we're dumbfounded and so impressed with how hard you guys worked. We didn't know any better. We're just, well, that's the budget we have, So yeah, I mean, it's, I think what we've been successful because we're hardworking guys and we never say no to anything. We just figure it out, So,
I mean, going from that and then going to something like the mid 400, which, the last 2 years we've, been honored to be a part of that event with you guys and have had a great time. We'll touch on the 5T project that we did a little bit, but how did you guys, catch wind of that event and then decide, hey, we can really revitalize this and build it up?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we were doing work with General Tire at the time. The marketing director at the time was this woman named Dana Zamaloa, Dana Z, we call her. And she was a very progressive, forward-thinking marketing professional, an absolute pleasure to work with. She did a lot of stuff with Orange County Choppers and, some of the other more reputable car builders. Like, she had her finger on the pulse of these different cultures and understood that off-road was a culture. In the same way that skateboarding and action sports culture is a culture, right? And, she hired us to shoot a couple commercials for her, in particular to activate on their Carl Renazenter sponsorship. He was like the Michael Jordan of short course for years. Him and Johnny Greaves used to battle it out there in the Midwest, right? And I think she saw the creative approach that we took, again, because we didn't come from film school and we're not a traditional marketing and advertising agency. So she loved the result. To her, it felt very authentic and stylish, and she's proud of the work, and they put a big buy behind it and it did really well for them. So in that time period, she came to us and said, "Hey, we're the title sponsor of the revitalized Mint 400. The Mint 400 was dormant from about 1984, 85 to 2008. So in 2008, the SNOR group, Southern Nevada Off-Road Enthusiasts, in out there in Nevada, they they brought the race back, and in 08, 09, 2010, and 2011, they ran it, and General Tire was the title sponsor. But I think what happened is, we're doing this pretty stylish work with her over here, and over here for the Mint at the time, it was a Lucas Oil TV production. Nothing wrong with Lucas. They do some great work. I love their stuff. I watch their stuff all the time. But I think Dana personally wanted to see the Mint racing told in a more cinematic and dramatic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we knew how to do. And so, she took a gamble on us and hired us in 2010 to produce coverage of that race. And what we created was something that was just way more heroic looking. I mean, it was akin more to NFL Films recaps that you see like on Monday night, and less the live coverage that you see on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And the guys that shot that with us are the same guys that we work with on, surf projects and freestyle motocross. So we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. For sure, we were the first production company to put a red camera out in the dirt, for sure. Because I remember my buddy Mike McIntyre looking at me going, you really want to put this $40,000 camera on a dolly on the outside of this turn while all of these trucks are driving by? And I'm like, yeah, dude, we got to get the shot. So I think that was a basically like a shock to the system, to the industry. Because when we put that out, that aired on, I want to say Speed Channel that year, it really caught people off guard. No, it wasn't on Speed. It was on, they ran it on Fuel TV. Fuel TV was still around. And so what was rad is the Mint reached this younger action sports crowd where it would have never reached that demographic on Lucas Oil, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, we came back in 2011 and did the same thing. And when we were planning to cover the race again in 2012, that's when the opportunity came up, and we sort of pounced on it. Snore had run into some issues with the BLM, and for whatever reason, they couldn't do it in 2012, so we took a gamble and we bought it, and we took the race to the Best in the Desert series and cut a deal with Casey Folks, who, left us too early a few years ago. Rest in peace, Casey. Boy, we miss you. But, Casey became our partner in the race operations side of things. He made the Mint part of the Best in the Desert Points Championship. And it stayed that way for about 8 years. Now, as of 2020, we've gone independent. And the Mint is our big Super Bowl race that we have every year in March in Vegas. And then we have a race coming up here in October, which is the UTV World Championship, similar to the Mint, but just focused on UTV racing. Doesn't include all those other classes like motorcycles and unlimited trucks and stuff. But yeah, the Mint it's an enigma. It really is. Steve McQueen raced the Mint. Every major Parnelli Jones. I'm just like, there's so many names. There's so much rich history there. So it was really fun though to do that 5T project with you guys. We should talk about that a little bit, because if you'd asked me a few years ago if I thought any RC vehicle could make it around that course is so treacherous. And Brian, you could touch on this a little bit too. I would have laughed at you. That course is gnarly. So when you tell the story, Greg, because you approached us and you're like, hey, can we bring the 5T out on the Mint course and document it? And I remember thinking we can, and it absolutely impressed the heck out of me, and just ate it up,
Yeah. So, 2019 was our first year really being a part of the Mint as a sponsor, and really seeing what it was all about. And I mean, obviously Losi, a lot of our heritage is in kind of the Southwest of the United States, and with off-road being so huge, it was a perfect match. And I hadn't been to an event before that where I went there and I was like, wow, this is the Losi crowd. Like, everybody was there to see the Losi vehicles, because they were the RC versions of all these awesome trucks that are running in the event. So we were there. We got back and really enjoyed the experience there and seeing the racing there. And then that's when the idea kind of came is, hey, what if we take the 5T and be the first RC car to run a lap at the Min 400. So brought it up to you. You were on board, and we're like, okay, let's see if we can make this work. So Brian was one of the main drivers on that one, and it was really incredible for me seeing how you guys shot that and how you knew where to go. I mean, I remember sitting in the back seat of your truck and Killian sitting in the front seat with like a map on his iPad, and it just looks like spaghetti all over. I had no idea what he was looking at, but he's like, yep, we're going to go straight that way for like 5 minutes. But seeing the process was pretty incredible. And Brian, maybe you can kind of talk to, when you were driving, following behind it in a UTV, and, what was some of your experiences you're going through there?
Like I remember when I first got the email from Greg about this whole concept, right? And I had the same reaction that Josh just mentioned, which was, like, okay, sure, like, let's go for it. What do I have to lose? And I mean, for me, I grew up in RC similar to Greg and stuff. And it was always one of those silly childhood dreams, right? Like those fantasies, like, what if I could one day chase this around in a real car and go on the freeway or go on the street, let alone go through the middle of the desert at 45, 50 miles an hour. But yeah, I forget the actual, I forget the name of it, but it was this beautiful area with like these Joshua trees. Josh, what is that area called when we were driving through?
Yeah, it's called the Joshua Tree Highway.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I remember going through there, and it's such a, I've not only bashed, I've messed around in the street at parks, I've raced RC cars professionally, but nothing compared to being bolted into a freaking UTV seat, and you have an RC car that you can see about 20, 30 feet in front of you. And if that corner, this is my driver to my left, he's blind making a right, just how I am. I don't know if there's a boulder on the other side, if there's a rut. But it's so crazy how you go tunnel vision. You really have no capacity to think about anything else besides just drive and try to keep this thing on all four. So definitely an experience for me. Super cool. If you guys haven't seen that, check it out. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, I think by the end of it, I had gained a whole new respect for that platform, especially when we took it through the Fox Proving Grounds, when we took it through some of the rougher, choppier ruts that, I guess a way for your viewers to wrap their heads around this is the Min 400 race course is 100-mile loop between the state line of Nevada and California, and pretty much like the last exit before you go into Vegas. So it's only a 40-mile stretch from tip to tip, but because we're looping it, we get a full 100 miles out of it. Very little of that actual course is just like flat gravel dirt roads. Most of it is raw desert. Like, it's treacherous, and we don't groom it ahead of time. We don't do anything. We just go out there and go, boop, that's race mile 22. And so we didn't groom it for you guys. We didn't groom it for the 5T. We're actually not allowed to. We're not allowed to go out there and touch it. We just let Mother Nature do her thing. So that was what impressed me, is we didn't replace the car. We didn't replace any of the major components. I don't even think we got one flat tire. And I'm looking at this thing going, dude, the 5T is doing better than any race vehicle I've ever seen out here. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen full-blown $1 million unlimited trucks, trophy trucks out here testing and just get thrashed through some of this stuff. So yeah, that was a really fun project. And it's a testament to the platform of the 5T.
Yeah. We enjoy it. I think it did even better than we thought it would. Definitely went through a lot of air filters. That's for sure.
A few spark plugs, found a few spark plugs and air filters, and I think one front arm. And it was just the front. The front ear was just broken, so it was still on the hinge pin, so it still worked. Yeah. So we just kept on running.
Well, the Fox Proving Grounds, there was one part where Chris Higa's going up, one of the sides, and there's 3 different ways that you can take up going there.
Yeah.
So he's driving, you see it in the video, because he hits a giant rock and it literally helicopters in the air and then lands and just keeps going straight. It was one of the coolest shots in there. But that was the fun part, is when you see an awesome shot like that, when you're actually filming it, and then you're just like, oh man, that's gonna look awesome. You get to watch it, watch it playback. It was pretty cool. But we'll get into a little bit more of with the Super Baja Ray and the videos with that coming up. But I want to talk a little bit about the UTV World Championships, with that coming up here in a couple weeks. So how many years have you been doing the UTV World Championships, and what can people expect for this year?
Yeah, we've this will be our 6th year. This is our 6th UTV World Championship. The previous 5 years, this event has been held in Laughlin, and it was part of the Best in the Desert Points Championship series for those 5 years. We decided to make a change this year, and actually it's kind of ironic, because we made the decision back in February pre-COVID, and wanted to. Previously, it had been in April, so you can imagine coming off the Mint and then a month later going into another race event.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal. I mean, we basically start grinding the first week of January, and we really didn't get a break until May, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we said, hey, let's not do that to ourselves anymore. Let's not do that to the racers. Let's move the World Championships 6 months away, put it in mid-October, and Laughlin is a very historic track. I love that track. There's a lot of history there with Score. There's been a lot of racing there. Rage on the River's there every year. It's a fantastic race. They race full size everything, right? But the concept behind the UTV World Championship was to create a Super Bowl of UTV racing that didn't cater to one specific style of competition. So currently in America, there's probably 50 or 60 different UTV race series, and it's everything from the mud stuff down south, the rock stuff in Johnson Valley with Dave and King of the Hammers. Best in the Desert and Score both offer some fantastic desert racing, and then Works and Lucas Oil offer 2 different styles of short course. That's a lot of variety, and I'm sure there's a bunch more out there. And so, we didn't want to create a championship series that competed with all those guys. We wanted to give all of them the opportunity to have one race a year where they had so much media coverage and there was so much excitement around it that, it created, official factory sponsorship opportunities, which we have. Our winners have gone on to get Can-Am and Polaris factory sponsorships, and really just became a lightning rod for the UTV industry, because basically what's happened in the last 5 years, even maybe 6 or 7, the growth of the UTV industry has absolutely fueled the entire off-road segment, let's say, right? And it's even had a ripple effect on outdoor recreation too. So, RVs, trailers, all the different stuff that goes along with owning a UTV have all benefited from this. In fact, right now, you can't buy a brand new UTV right now. It's very difficult to find certain models in stock right now because a lot of us are on furlough. There's nothing to do. So, God love you if you have cool temperatures and you can go driving around in a UTV right now. So, we've always felt a certain respect for that platform because it's the entry point for off-road. The fact that you can go buy a UTV and make a few $1,000s worth of modifications to it and race it is absolutely what the off-road industry has needed for years, because previous to that, you had to go to a custom fabricator. You had to, put a fat deposit down. Hopefully the guy builds you a good car, and every race you got to bring it back to him and go fix it. If you got a few bucks, you can do that, but it gets expensive. It gets expensive. So, the concept of creating the UTV World Championship was really both to to give the pros a chance to shine, but also to bring in a new generation and foster a new generation of racers, and it's working. We have
classes in this, don't you?
Yeah, I was just gonna. You read my mind. That's where I was going with it. So we have historically, we have between 250 and 400 competitors, depending on how things ebb and flow year to year, and a good 20% of them are youth, and that's amazing. So kudos to Polaris for designing the 170 and 570 platform, because that is the training wheels for learning how to race, in a full size car. And those kids are bitching. They're so ferocious. They're so pumped to be out there racing. And, it's a treat to watch 30 of those little bobblehead dudes take off and go out into the desert and bash doors and come back and then high five each other and congratulate each other. So this year, the event's taking place in Lake Havasu City. We've created a custom, brand new 30-mile course just south of Lake Havasu in an area called Standard Wash. For those of you who know the area, it's 4 miles south of Sarah Park, right off the 95 freeway. Everything is free parking, free admission, and we're going to be operating October 7th through the 11th. The 2 primary days of racing will be Friday the 9th and Saturday the 10th from about 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's other stuff going on, and if you're interested, go check out UTVWorldChampionship.com to see the full schedule. There's some other neat stuff going on there. There's a poker run and a full-blown UTV festival at Standard Wash. The only thing we're asking folks to do so that we can be compliant with the current COVID restrictions in the state of Arizona is you have to wear a face mask. You have to wear a face covering. Super minor. Everybody can do that. And I think it's going to be fantastic. And you guys, thanks to you guys, we have some fantastic Losi prizes, both for all of our kids. First place in the 570, 170, 570, 1,000 and 900 youth races. Mm-hmm. And we're also giving away Losi trucks to the overall pro desert and pro short course winners. So it's going to be a good one, man. We're expecting a few thousand racers and with their friends and family. And then, Lake Havasu is a huge UTV town, so we're expecting a few thousand folks to come out and check it out. I think this will be a really good one. Yeah.
So now this year you added a lot more of live streaming to it as well that you guys have been testing. So how did you how are you arranging for that for people to kind of view it, in a live stream as well?
Yeah, totally. No, it's a great point. Our style of production of how we cover racing has definitely evolved over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, we would film the Mint and then spend a month editing a show, make it super cinematic. And, people loved it. It was a great way to relive who won. Mm-hmm. But what's happened again, we've benefited from this technology curve, right? So even 5 years ago, if you wanted to do a decent live stream with, say, 6, 7, 8 cameras, it's still every bit of, and it's a very expensive production to get those streams into a truck, have a crew sitting there mixing it live, studio feeds, the whole 9 yards, and push that out to the internet, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere, which we usually are. Prim is a tiny little town on the border. There's no high-speed internet there. We're dealing with satellite dishes and all this other crazy technology, right? But it gets cheaper and it gets easier to use every year. So this year at the Mint, back in March, we did our best live stream production ever, and I'm not trying to be egotistical here, but I'll tell you, it was probably one of the best in the history of the sport. And the reason I say that is because we figured out how to put cameras inside unlimited trucks when they're out in the desert. We have high-speed drones chasing these guys through certain sections. We had 6 or 7 cameras way out on the course in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell coverage out there, but we figured out a way to get those signals back. And our crew of guys that were on that TV show were just phenomenal. So we've taken that same kind of package now, that same kind of professional knowledge, and now we're applying that to the UTV World Championship this year. So if you're not in, Southern Nevada, Arizona, California, and you can't make it out and see this in person, or you're just nervous because of COVID, don't worry. You're going to be able to watch it all live as it goes down on utvworldchampionship.com. And I think we're going to end up broadcasting somewhere around 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. each night. So we'll recap some of the short course races and youth races that happen in the morning, and then show as much of the afternoon desert races as we can, because that's where we think there's going to be a lot of banging doors and good action. Yeah,
it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to checking it out, and then hopefully next year I'll be there in person. I can see it in person. So,
well, we have a rally class for guys who are just learning how to race, and I think it'd be pretty cool to see a Losi branded Razor out there. Maybe you and Brian dicing it up next year.
What do you think, Brian? Should give it a try?
Sign me up.
Yeah.
So one last topic I wanted to get into, and if anyone has questions, feel free to go ahead and comment, and we'll address those as well. But so our latest project that we worked on with you is the Super Baja Ray 2.0, and you guys also shot the original Super Baja Ray videos. So I wanted to get both yours and Brian's thoughts on the videos, how it was shooting that first one, and the second one with the added aspect of the Brenthel truck being there and shooting with that. So so we'll get into that, and then we'll get into the question about the run over.
yeah. I guess the best way to start, in terms of that first video that we worked on together, it was great to work on that with you guys, because what we really appreciated about you guys is that your approach was to just capture what the truck is capable of in an authentic environment. And I remember spitballing with you guys on the creative and saying to you, listen, we don't have to pretend to be or do anything different here. We go to Ocotillo every weekend. We go to this one camp spot. It's a rad little spot. There's a little kids track there. There's hundreds of miles of UTV riding to be done there. And this is our lifestyle. We build a camp. We get the kids all set up in their little UTVs. We go for group rides, and in the evening, while we're all cooking dinner, these kids spend 2-3 hours at a time putting laps down. But hey, we're kids at heart too. We want to play with our trucks too. And it's no joke, every night it turns into a big session until we all run out of batteries, right? Yeah. So the concept with the first Super Baja Ray was very simple. Like, hey, this is a family. We're out in the desert, we're camping, and these two boys and this girl want to have a good time and drive these trucks all around. And it just kind of filmed itself. We really didn't it wasn't very scripted, a few things here and there, but I mean, Brian, I think the most fun we had was just coming up with all these different creative ways to show how rad those trucks were, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, looking back, because I was a part of the original SBR shoot with the Mad Media guys, was to Josh's point, there wasn't really a script. We kind of knew that we were just going to go out and show the lifestyle that we're all partake in pretty much on a weekly basis. But I think the big difference for me was, we shot the first video, the original video, I think it was 3 days. We got there late the first day and stuff. So it was, you can take advantage of the morning light, the good light, and then the sunset light in between when the sun's right above us, a lot of shadows, we recharge, we download media, all that kind of stuff. But on this 2.0 video, we have this trophy truck that we have to get in here, right? The Brenthel team is obviously a very busy team. We had Kyle, the driver, who's obviously very busy himself. Not only is it costing him the time, but also money to actually put this freaking full-scale trophy truck in the desert and beat it up with us, and have fun. So for me, it was waking up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, jumping in, driving to Barstow, getting there before the sun went up, getting together as a group, and trying to shoot all the way through lunch pretty much while the sun's still good, and then wrap up. So it was just crazy to me how much more, I wouldn't want to say hectic, because it still was really efficient with the whole team. Even though you go from 3 days to 2 days, from 3 days to 1 day to 6 days or 6 hours, we still got what I would even consider to be even more epic video on this 2.0.
Yeah.
So it was really, when you see a video, when a consumer sees the video, they don't know the backstory, right? And kind of the work that it took. But I think that's also part of our job is to come up with something that's epic, not whether we do it in an hour or a month, right. It still has to be epic. And hats off to you guys and your team, Josh, for always being ready and knowing the shots. And those guys, the best thing for me, there was a few critical good moments, but it's like one of the guys, like he's trying to get the angle. Next thing you know, he just plops full on the dirt. And, Josh goes, when somebody lays in the dirt, they're feeling it. They're vibing for that shot. And of course, you look at the video, you look at the playback, you're like, that was it. Let's move on, So you do whatever you have to do. I've been to Baja, and I've never been that close to a trophy truck zooming by the whoops. And I got to go for a ride in it with Kyle. Crazy. It's just good all around time.
Yeah. Well, listen, we knew when we saw the early photos and renderings of the truck, it became instantly apparent to us that you guys had done even more research and more homework and put a dramatic amount more of time and effort into the version 2. So you spent all this time with King, you spent all this time with Brenthel. I start running down with Chris on all the different upgrades and how much more detail had been put into that. So immediately we're thinking, okay, number one, if you did that much work to make this Brenthel truck a sister or a mirror image of the full size, we have to shoot with the full size. There's no question of that. And two, how can we as cinematographers and storytellers pay homage to all that work that you guys did? And that had to be getting very close to and showing all the detail of the stuff that you guys created, and then sharing that by comparing it to the full size version, because we're sitting in Brenthel's shop shooting your SBR2, and behind us there's a guy welding a $750,000 hand built truck from scratch, right? Like that's probably we're sharing with your audience too. Like there are only about 100 to 150 of these trucks in existence right now in the world. So these are as rare or more rare than, say, a Ferrari or a Tesla, any kind of supercar. And they're very complicated. They've become, from an engineering perspective, they've become, they're very challenging to build and to build well. And so just the fact that you guys chose those guys and King, who, by the way, makes some of the best shocks in the industry, and have a huge influence on every single light truck and passenger vehicle, that has any of that stuff on it. You guys you hit it out of the park. So we knew the best way to tell that story was to really show what Brenthel does, because Brenthel's a pretty good representation of what the off-road industry as a whole is doing, and then there's just no beating the showcase of raw power, how high these trucks can jump, how fast they can go over this treacherous desert landscape. I mean, it's just nuts. But to your point, thank you, Brian. I think you guys love this, and your customers and your fans can tell, and we love the full size version and the RC World too. And so I think it was it's been a great match, because when you care about your work, it's evident. It translates right onto the screen. Yeah,
there's definitely a level of authenticity that I think our consumers are starting to see in our product. Even in the comments right now, you guys are doing such a great job. Good job. Just a little bit of background. I was actually the one that designed the body on the original SBR.
Oh, nice.
And this was in a time, this was almost 4.5 years ago, to where Losi wasn't really heavy in licensing, right? We were really focused on just how do we make this be the best performing car, but we definitely put looks kind of in the back seat. We're like, how do we make it fast first, and then maybe we'll make it look cool. So I remember designing that body and taking influences from a lot of different trucks and what was out there at the time. And as that product, as we're shooting the video for the SBR, the original one, my roles in transit, I kind of started transitioning myself professionally into more of a licensing role, where Losi was starting to do more of these Fords, these Chevys, what have you. And I remember when we started talking about in a meeting, like, okay, the 2.0's coming. What are we going to do to make it better? And obviously, we got to make it 8S, right? Everybody wants to go bigger, wants to go faster. Let's make it 8S. What else can we do to make it stronger? We go all these lists, and then we get down to the looks, which was a big part of my job at the time. And one of the critical things I remember in the meeting was like, all right, at that time, we already done the small Baja Ray with the Ford Raptor. We know that people are going to be expecting a Ford Raptor, more scale looking out of Losi. Part of the issue, though, is you have to pay for that license. And I think what the consumers kind of don't realize, and which is fine, is like for that car to be a Ford Raptor, now you're talking about another $100, $110 that you have to pay just because it's a Ford Raptor.
Right.
So then that prices us out of the market, you know? So we want to make sure that not only these cars are cool, fast, and fun, but also affordable for most of these cats. So that's when I reached out to Jonathan and Jordan, and it was literally straight cold call, email, just talk to them. And I got an email response back. And ever since then, man, it's been a great partnership. And just to hear their story, you know, I mean, Greg comes just like you. I mean, I know a little bit about your history and trying to get into the music world, and through everything, ended up where you're at today. Again, just by the seat of your pants, right? Just sure. Greg, very similar story, my similar story. The Brenthel brothers, they never expected, it was never their dream or goal to build this crazy Brenthel team and produce $1 million trophy trucks. They just started having fun because it was too expensive for them to buy one. So we'll just build our own. So I think that's what's great about this is everybody involved comes kind of from the same background. And, you know, to just circle back, it's authentic. Yeah. You know, I think we could have put a Ford Raptor body on there. It would have been okay. It would have been what people expected. But I think the fact that we went with Brenthel was definitely the right call. And I remember a few times Todd Hodge, the head of product development, the director, was like, "Are you sure this is the right call?" I'm like, "Trust me, dude. There's no way we can go wrong with this." And it's a group effort. Chris Higa on the graphics, the Axial. So the person that did the graphics on this product is actually from the old Axial team who still works at Horizon. Just killed it. I mean, it was probably, I kid you not, 5 weeks. And I think Chris Higa said it's 40-something different pieces of the decal to put on this body to make it look as good as it does. So it's definitely, for those out there watching, this is just the beginning. I see questions like, you know, what else is coming down the pipeline and anything cool? I think from now to a year's time, you guys are all going to be blown away by the new Losi. It's not only fast like it was back in the day. We still have our roots with the racing, but now it's going to look even killer. So it's epic.
Yeah, I was going to say it certainly didn't hurt to have Kyle Jurgensen out there driving that. For sure. That day. I mean,
he did not let up, man. I mean, you would have figured these guys are like, all right, like I'm not going to take it too seriously. Okay, I'll go through these whoops. But it's almost like, dude, he was in the middle of the mid 400 race. He's just out there wooded. I mean, just sending it. And I'm like, I remember Jonathan and Jordan, he sent it off a jump in one of these takes, and he landed a little bit on I think it was like the left rear. Got a little tweaked out of place. And both of the guys just like, whoa, we got to race this thing soon, dude. Don't destroy it. And Kyle's just sending it. He's just sending it.
Now, tell us a little bit about the timing. So, you know, there's the one shot where the big one's jumping over the RC, and then there's the other shot where, you know, it kind of goes over it and clips it at the end. How did those shots come together? And I think more importantly, what was the aftermath after it clipped it?
Yeah, I think that's what people want to know. And I want to start with that. And I'm pretty sure nobody's going to believe us, but I'm sure somewhere we can put it together. But when that truck got ran over, that is still the same truck that we finished the video with. Yeah. It didn't break anything. And if you actually look at some of those takes, you'll notice the front of the body is a little bit collapsed, like the grill's facing a little bit at a weird angle. That's how you know that's the same truck that got ran over. It literally just spat out the back, and Chris Higa at the time was just kept on driving it. Yeah. So nothing broke on that truck. Yeah. We also do have some other behind-the-scenes stuff that nobody's seen yet that I think we'll probably come out with because it is a little bit risky to come out with because we're doing some crazy stuff. But I think – I don't want to get into detail, but even Josh, when we did this, everybody on the Mad Media team, especially Josh, was like, I was expecting this thing to like disintegrate.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can throw any battery in it and just go. You know, we took the batteries out of it just to be safe.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, so the last year in 2019 at the Min 400, we took the first version of the series. You had the freestyle motocross guys were there, and I was talking to one of them in between their shows because they did like 3 shows a day, and I was like, hey, you know, can we do some demos afterwards? You know, pull our stuff out into there, and he's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, you guys want to jump the truck? So Todd Hodge decided to get the Super Baja Ray out, and it was a windy day. Like the guy bikes, they had a huge tailwind. So it's what, maybe a 3-foot ramp that they're jumping off of and going over the giant Monster Energy truck. So Todd got it prepped up. He jumped it, and 60 feet. He jumped that thing probably 40 feet in the air. Brian was up on top with his phone taking a video of it, and then he flat landed from 40 feet in the air. Flat landed Super Baja Ray.
Yeah,
and I think he bent like a dog bone. And
a tower. I think we broke a shock tower and bent the bone, and that's it.
Like it still drove away,
and we can still drive it.
$3 worth of damage or something. So the durability of these trucks is pretty incredible.
Yeah, you know, we when we're doing these shoots, there's this concept that, you know, we want to get a lot of good footage in the can, and then towards the end of the shoot, we start pushing the envelope a little bit more, get a little bit more dangerous because, you know, you don't want to go out and smash your gear up on take 1 and then you got, you know, beat up looking product. Now you guys had a bunch of backup stuff. I don't think we even used any of it. I think we just
2 cars, just one of each.
Yeah, one of each. But yeah, I remember going back and forth with my assistant Killian and hearing him over the radio just laughing like, dude, we can't destroy this truck. We keep trying to do this take where we're, you know, basically driving over the top of it. And I think that's the combination of Chris Higa driving, Kyle Jurgensen driving the full-size truck. I mean, we need to get those 2 guys together more often because that was some pretty magical stuff. I've been doing this for 25 years, and as a director, you know, it can be very frustrating sometimes when you're asking an athlete to do something and they know they can do it and you know they can do it, but for whatever reason, it's not happening. But that was just a very fun, fluid day. You know, the whole thing just came together really well. But you're right. You guys should drop some of that other footage because it's a testament to the strength of that platform. Holy cow. You know, the frame on that thing must be made out of, you know, unobtainium or something. You know? So
yeah. So for anybody that ordered one of the Super Baja Rays or you're thinking about it, it's looking like probably mid to late October it should be shipping. So about 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And then we'll start to sprinkle out some of the other footages as we sort through it. But just wanted to give one last shout out. If anybody else has any, you know, questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to post them on there. We got Brad is kind of behind the scenes watching the comments, so I apologize if we did miss a comment. It's hard to kind of keep the conversation going and watch the comments all one time. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I look forward to our future projects that we're working on, and even for, you know, things like the Min 400 next year. You know, we're already talking about what we can do and do as far as demos and things like that. I could say for Brian and I, we've probably had some of the most fun when we've been running demos at the Min 400 because you get a crowd like 4 to 6 people deep around wherever we are, and they're just, you know, watching us sky these vehicles in the air. And I mean, we were driving the 5T last year and we were launching it off this ramp. A couple times it on its hood, and the last time it finally stopped, so Todd went over and got it. And the reason why it stopped running was because the spark plug actually stuck into the roof of the truck.
Yeah,
the vehicle was fine; it just needed to be spark plugged. But yeah, it was pretty crazy.
So we do have a question here from Corey Godston. Did you guys increase the battery compartments? So yeah, so one of the main differences in the SBR 2.0 is the bulkhead, the rear bulkhead section of the chassis. It's actually the same size as the Super Baja Ray. So now, instead of the old one, the SBR, the original SBR was only 6S capable. We came out with the Super Baja Ray 8S capable. So now the Super Baja Ray 2.0 is also 8S capable. So that's why we made it larger. So yes, good question. I think a lot of people are asking that. There's a lot of confusion there, but we did make it bigger. Michael John with the MTXL, is it coming back? This is a good question, and we've seen this plenty of times before. I mean, it was a beast of a monster truck, but unfortunately, kind of just the demand wasn't there for that truck enough for us to keep it in our lineup. So could it come back? I don't know. I think I'm going to grin and say that we have a bunch of cool stuff coming back. But for the MTXL specifically, I think just demand was too low compared to like the DBXL at that time. So I think we had to let it go. Jerry Bob, unbelievable job. Thanks, appreciate that. That's not to me, that's the whole team, honestly. It's crazy. I mean, it's a year and a half, almost 2 years to come out with a product, and you're not just doing one at a time, you're doing 6 or 7. So
well, I've seen, so Jerry is actually, he's done several Super Baja Ray, the first version, and
gotcha.
Video for the second version. He was very excited about it, to say the least. So he said he's got a couple of projects coming up for that one. So that should be cool.
Sweet.
5T brushless version. So we do have the conversion kit for the 5T to make it brushless. Never say never. We don't have anything in the works right now, but as of right now, that's really kind of the staple Losi product is, to be using the engine that's in there, and the product that's out there. Chris Higa is actually the product developer for the 5T as well, and has done an awesome job with that. And that's actually his genre of RC is he races 5th scale vehicles, and probably the coolest like RC trailer. So if you're into RC, just imagine taking your workbench on the road to any race that you go to. So using
with
that
the mini fridge, with AC, with everything.
It's got heat, it's got AC, it's got a workbench there. It's absolutely amazing.
So we actually have one for Josh here. Cole Black is asking, where can you find the UTV rulebook?
Yeah, totally. Just for folks at home who might have joined in, there's about 7-8 different classes at the UTV World Championship and in the world of UTV racing in general, right? There are some entry-level classes all the way up to the pro classes. The UTV rally class we started a couple years ago because we wanted folks who had a stock UTV to have a chance to race. And it's a unique class because we do not require you to swap out your OEM gas tank for a fuel cell, but we do require nets and some other safety equipment. So Cole, that's a great question. Go to utvworldchampionship.com/racer info, and you'll see a link there to our official rule book, and there's a dedicated PDF for that class that'll help you take a look at it and sort out what you need to buy. But I can tell you, generally speaking, you're going to need window nets, you're going to need a 4 or 5 point harness, and a few other little safety items to race in the rally class. But that's a great way to get started. If you can win in the rally class, you can probably do pretty well in some of those other pro classes.
There you go, Brian. That's our target for 2021.
Sounds good.
That's you guys.
I'm going straight to the garage after this and start welding.
Yeah,
for sure.
Just to kind of wrap up, there was a couple other questions I saw in there. So these are coming to Europe. The price point here in the US is $899.99. And as I said, those should be ready right around mid-October. So Josh, I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're crazy busy wrapping up things from this project and moving on to the UTV World Championships leaving next week. So we really appreciate genuinely, you taking the time to sit down and chat with us for an hour. Always a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys. No, it was a pleasure to work on SBR2 with you, and we're very grateful for the support at the Mint this year. Losi being the official RC truck of the Mint 400 has been huge for us. And I want to extend an invitation to all your friends and the guys listening at home. If you can make it to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, October 7th through the 11th, please join us. We have drive-in spectating. Everything's free. And you're welcome to bring your RC trucks. We can't allow drones or quadcopters over the racetrack during the race, but that's about it. Everything else is fair game. And of course, if you're into the boat stuff, you got Lake Havasu right there to do some rad stuff too. And then, you know, we're back in Vegas next March. Rain, shine, COVID, nothing's going to slow us down on the Mint. So, you know, take a look at your calendar. I believe we're March 3rd through the 7th this year. We're always the first weekend of March in Vegas for the Mint 400. So, and you and I, Greg, we got some planning to do on that because you know we always go bigger and better every year.
It'd be fun.
I don't know how we're going to outdo next year, but we'll figure it out. So thank you guys.
For sure. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Brian. And we'll see everyone next time.
Bye, everybody.